all brag about. Pass it along.
Hi, and welcome to the Morning Blend. I'm your host, Sherry Farmer, and with me now is Suzanne Binker. Now, she is an author of 5 books here in St. Louis trying to save relationships. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
And you've written 5 books.
I have. It's been a long road, actually. This particular one has been a serious labor of love, not to discount the others, but it's a little bit more personal, and it has a very significant memoir component to it.
And it's all about relationships. So can you tell us about your background in relationships?
Sure.
And how you know so much?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. It's actually really about marriage, which I've been married practically my whole life, my whole adult life, I should say. So I always like to say that the people who are the most experienced in marriage, people who have been married the longest, are the experts in it and know the most about it and know what not to do, because there's lots of trial and error along the way. So I was married actually once before, 23, divorced at 27, no kids, and then I had a 3-year period there of being single, and then remarried at 30, and I'm now 48. Mm-hmm. So I've been a wife a long time, but this book is really about something very specific with respect to marriage, and that is that the title of the book is The Alpha Female's Guide to Men in Marriage. And while it's really for women in general, I specified alpha females because I definitely identify and would be described, I think, by most people as an alpha. We can talk about what that means in a minute.
Yeah, let's know what the alpha means.
And I was also raised by an alpha mother, I should say. And basically I come from a long line of alpha females. And I watched this personality and have obviously lived with it for a very long time. And I noticed sort of that it has both good and bad elements to it. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking really a personality type, and in the book we talk, and on the website I actually have a quiz so you can determine whether or not you are an alpha wife, and then there's a quiz in the book that points to whether or not you're an alpha female, although most people kind of know whether they are. Yeah. And there's also a spectrum which I talk about. So it's really honing on a very specific personality. And the gist of the book is really helping women with strong personalities learn how to love a man and be a wife, because going back to when I said it has both good and bad that being an alpha has both good and bad side to it. The good side is that you tend to be very successful in life, which is great. But the downside is that as a wife, it doesn't work so much, because you ultimately end up doing this a lot with the average man who are alphas mostly by nature.
That gender war that you mentioned.
Yeah. So the gender dynamics and the gender war, as you put out, is really my specialty and what I've really honed in on in the last 5 years, especially with my writing. So that's how this sort of came to be, where I wrote The War on Men, and that got me really thrown into gender relations. And then I started, as I say, looking at my own marriage, and I was seeing things years down the road. And a lot of times it takes a while before you really start to see this dynamic for what it is, and looking at where things really weren't working for us and what part I played in that. And so it's very, it requires being very self-reflective, needless to say.
That's not always easy.
It's not always easy.
Yeah, especially when you're in the wrong. Not that women are ever in the wrong.
Well, it definitely... we do talk a lot about, I think we're very quick to blame men. I think we're very quick to say when a marriage goes south, oh, what did he do? Or we're very happy to talk about that. But guess what? There's 2 people in a marriage, and we're not used to turning the tables on women and saying, well, is there something that you're bringing to the table? And so then I back up at the beginning of the book and really talk about the dance between men and women and males and females, and how in order to make that work, you need 2 very distinct energies, right? A masculine and a feminine. And we know that the alpha is a typically masculine quality, and the flip side, beta, and you can use different terms for this, type A, type B, active, passive, leader, follower, whatever you want to do. When you have 2 alphas or 2 leaders, combustible. And if you have 2 betas, well, nothing really gets done. So the ideal, of course, is to have one of each. And that gets into the nitty-gritty of the book, understanding where that balance is.
Well, I imagine those two B's are kind of like when you're trying to figure out what to have for dinner. I don't know, where do you want to go? What are you hungry for? I don't know, what do you want?
That's
that
it.
kind of, yeah.
Absolutely. But of course, this book hones in on really what happens when there's two alphas, because the average guy is an alpha really by nature. And my argument is that women are actually more beta by nature, but have been taught and cultivated to be more masculine really in the last several decades.
Because things have changed, especially women in the workforce. I mean, you have almost, well, more roles than you've ever had before as a female, and especially if you're married with children, that's a lot more on the table.
Absolutely, which is the whole point of, okay, so let's take a look at this new modern alpha female and where it's working for her and where it may not be working for her. And so the gist of the ultimate argument at the end is that if you want to be successful in both arenas, meaning life and love, whether we're talking about working in the workforce or even raising kids, because that's one of the things I like about this book, is that it lumps those two groups together, because even as a mom at home, you are in charge, right? You don't have a boss, it's your own thing. So shifting gears even from being a mother at home to a wife is not that different in this regard than being a professional and turning to becoming a wife at night. It's the same flip. And so what you have to do is get yourself into a different mode when you walk in at night and really tap in more to that feminine side of who you really naturally are. And I think that women have gotten away from that natural, that's in all of us, but it's been either not modeled well or been taught to get it out of you. And I'm saying, no, you are wasting so much power. That is where a woman's real power lies when it comes to a relationship with a man.